Okay, so this is now part 2 of looking at the Spinosaurus designs from TV shows and movies. In part 1, I primarily looked at like documentaries and some of the most famous Spinosaurus designs. There are, of course, other Spinosaurus designs in movies and television that I didn't get to, primarily for the sake of brevity, because that video was kind of already going a little bit longer than I had anticipated. But in this video, we will be looking at the rest of them that I did not get a chance to look at. Again, this does not include the video games. I know that there's a plethora of Spinosauruses that show up in the video games, but I think that those kind of should get the opportunity to be looked at in their own dedicated video. So for now, again, this is just movies and TV. So let's go ahead and get right into it. We're going to start off with a childhood nostalgic one for me, that being Land Before Time. So if you didn't know, aside from the awesome movie that was released, Land Before Time had several straight-to-video sequels. I mean several. There was quite a few. But in one of those sequels, they actually featured a Spinosaurus as the primary sharp tooth, which is actually really cool because Spinosaurus is flippin' awesome. And its appearance is, you know, what you'd expect from a Land Before Time theropod dinosaur. Very reminiscent of the classic T-Rex and other sharp teeth that showed up in the shows, but it has its very iconic sail, as well as a few spikes kind of adorning the top of its head and its tail. It also has this kind of like purpley color, which I think is pretty common for Spinosaurs that show up in media in general. It looks cool. You know, it definitely looks how you'd expect it to look like in this kind of movie that's, you know, perfect for children, and it's just really cool that it showed up. One little thing to note though is that it actually has 2 fingers, much like the Tyrannosaurus Rex. You know, that's pretty different from our understanding of Spinosaurus now, which has 3 fingers, much like other Spinosaurids, but it's just a cool little thing that sets it apart from the other designs. Also a little fun thing, the way that they defeat it in the show, they actually use like its primary thing that Spinosaurus uses to stand out against it. They lead it underneath a rock, and its sail gets stuck in the rock. And so I thought that was fun. They kind of incorporated what made Spinosaurus unique and kind of used it against it. I thought that was fun. I just wanted to throw that in there. However, next up we have a show that I did not watch. It was pretty much past my time. You know, this is Dino Dan and Dino Dana, which I think came out after Dino Dan. I could be wrong about that, but I know that these shows did feature a plethora of different dinosaurs, including Spinosaurus. And from what I can tell from my Google searches is that they used a couple different designs for the Spinosaurus in these 2 shows. I mean, for one, there's one design that is really reminiscent of Spinosaurus in general. It has like really thin features with the teeth exposed, even covered in what seems to be some osteoderms, but with a really good looking skull that it looks a lot like what we've always expected a Spinosaurus skull to look like. But there's one that I found, and like, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if this is in the show or not, but there's one that actually has it shown with lips, which is interesting because theropod dinosaurs are not necessarily usually shown with lips. And Spinosaurus, it is likely that Spinosaurus had lips as well. There's always an argument to be made that Spinosaurus was primarily semi-aquatic, and so it wouldn't need lips to kind of keep its teeth fresh. But because recent studies show that it likely wasn't as semi-aquatic as we thought, and more so just kind of stuck to the shores, kind of hunting like a heron, I think it's likely that Spinosaurus had lips. So it's cool that there is a design that shows Spinosaurus with lips, something that's really not common, especially for Spinosaurus, that really gives it the kind of crocodilian-like look mouth, which, I mean, you know, it's fair. It has a very crocodilian-like snout, so that's definitely no fault of any of the designs that show up. It's something that's common. But that's something that I think that Dino Dan or Dino Dana, I don't know which one this shows up in. I think that's something that they did that looks really cool. And next up we have the very classic Primeval. Now Primeval is a very cool show. It's this kind of show where there's like a team of people who are tasked with taking care of these anomalies. Now anomalies are like these kind of like rifts through time that kind of send creatures from the future or from the past to the present, and then this team of people have to kind of like take care of them before any like issues with time happen. It's been a while since I've seen the show. The latest one I saw was the reboot of the show, Primeval New World, and you know, that was a while ago. So it's been a while since I've seen the show. I did refresh myself on the clips of the Spinosaurus, and yeah, it definitely looks exactly how I remember. The designs were definitely not going for accuracy, and that's fine. You know, it's a sci-fi show. It's definitely not, you know, obligated to go for paleontological accuracy, and so for the most part they were probably just going to go for designs that looked cool, and this design does look cool. Like, especially for the kind of show that it's in, which is a very dark and kind of gritty show, I really like the jagged look of the Spinosaurus, especially with the kind of membrane, I think, kind of torn in between the sails. Really gives it kind of an interesting silhouette and helps it stand apart from the many other Spinosauruses that showed up. It's also extremely shrink wrapped, but does have the correct skull shape, as well as being covered with spikes, something that's kind of common in Spinosaurus, I'm finding. As well as having the long, powerful arms with 3 fingers that is very famous in Spinosaurus. But something that's really cool is that it kind of has this type of flap of skin underneath its on its throat. That's something that you don't see too often with this animal, and I think it's something that makes it look really cool and again helps it to stand out. I also really like the red accents that are kind of on its throat and head. That's another, like, that little bit of coloration really helps make it look just really cool in general. I think I use the word cool too much, but Spinosaurus is cool, and almost every time it shows up, it's cool in my opinion. Now, this is a big one for me because this is the Dino Squad Spinosaurus. Now, Dino Squad, I kind of thought was a fever dream by this point. I had vague memories of watching it when I was younger, but I could never pinpoint what the name of it was or when I actually watched it. But then this commenter, who gave me a few little options for more Spinosaurus to look at, actually named Dino Squad, and when I looked it up, there it was, Dino Squad. So it's a little show. It was like one of those Saturday morning cartoons that had these teenagers that their DNA was modified so they can turn into dinosaurs, and one of them was able to turn into the Spinosaurus, which is always a huge plus for me. Spinosaurus is awesome. And its design looks really cool. It's very stylized for this type of 2D animation, and I think looks awesome. It has a really jagged sail that gives it an awesome silhouette, as well as like really jagged kind of head crest that also looks really striking, and I'm a huge fan of. I also really like the contrast of the brownish colors of the sail and the crest to the yellow colors of the Spinosaurus's body, and it has some features that Spinosaurus is very well known for, like the long arms and the elongated snout. It's definitely a unique design, and of course it's been forever since I've seen the show. I barely even knew it existed. I'm glad that it did exist, because now I can have the option to try to hunt it down and maybe revisit it one of these days. But yeah, that is the Dino Squad Spinosaurus. Now, there's of course some more Spinosaurus designs that show up. Like, I know that there's one in Dinosaur Train. Again, that's another show that I didn't get the opportunity to watch because I was too old by the time that show was already coming out. I remember tuning into it like a couple of times, but it never really stuck with me. It was never really something that I wanted to watch, so I never really watched it. But looking at the images, it has a really interesting design to it. Of course, it's a very striking orange color, orange yellowish type color, with a really cool looking sail, but it also has like kind of an underbite, as in it has like a huge chin. That is definitely different for a Spinosaurus, and I like it. It adds that little unique flair to it, that, for lack of a better term, because I'm a broken record by this point, helps it stand out from the crowd, from other Spinosauruses. So yeah, from what I can tell, it's a pretty cool looking design, all things considered. And finally, yet another one I'm not familiar with, because again, it was after my time, is the Gigantosaurus, which is a little animated TV show that I've only known vague images of. But it briefly had, or I assume briefly, it had Spinosaurus in it. And once again, its design is stylized for the kind of medium it's in. This is obviously a children's show, kind of showing off different dinosaurs, and its design definitely stands out. It has this really cool gradient-like color to it with the counter shading, a light green on the bottom moving up to a darker green on the top, with a really cool bright reddish orange sail that I really like. It also seems to have the kind of underbite as well, much like the Dinosaur Train, like Spinosaurus. And all things considered, it definitely looks like a Spinosaurus. All of these have pretty much looked like a Spinosaurus. Like there's something that if you look at, you can stop and say, yeah, that's a Spinosaurus. And so they're all, of course, for the medium that they're in, they're all very good representations. We didn't look at any documentaries today, so accuracy really isn't a huge concern when it comes to something like that. For the most part, a lot of these are just going for solely entertainment. I know that some shows are like for children that are meant to be educational, like Dino Dan and Dino Dana, I assume, and I think Gigantosaurus as well. So I think that from the clips that I've seen, they do offer some snippets of information, and their designs do represent some accuracy placed into that. But I don't really know if they'd be considered full-blown documentaries. Maybe I'm wrong. But for the most part, the designs I looked at this time around aren't going for that accuracy. They're just going for pure entertainment, and from what I can see, they look good. They look like it looks like they achieved what they were trying to achieve, and you know, with some stylistic liberties taken here and there, especially ones that are trying to fit a specific animation style. All around, very good, and a very good part 2 to this list, I think. But anyway, that's pretty much all the designs I have right now. I'm sure I'm missing quite a few. I think Spinosaurus has shown up quite a bit more than even I have anticipated. So if there are any more that you want to look at, I can probably put them into my video game Spinosaurus look thing, whatever I'm calling this, and I can just take a look at those and, you know, I guess review them. But thank you guys so much for watching, and have an awesome day.